My mom took $10,000 to hand my 14-year-old sister to a grown man for the night, then told me she'd finally found her purpose. When I begged her to bring Lily home, she just laughed and said, "Mr. Donovan is very pleased with his investment." I didn't say anything. That was 3 months ago. Last night she locked herself in the prison bathroom and cried so quietly I almost didn't hear it. In our family, the girls followed one rule: charm the older gentleman or watch your sister go to bed hungry. Every Friday and Saturday night, my mom would dress me and Lily in our best clothes and drive us to upscale restaurants downtown. There we'd meet older men for dinner, men who handed her envelopes of cash afterward for our delightful company. She called it teaching us social grace. My mom started this after Dad left us 3 years ago. "Women have survived on their beauty and charm for centuries," she'd say while curling our hair. "I'm teaching you something valuable." She kept a leather-bound journal, carefully recording names, numbers, and payment details in her flawless handwriting. So when I turned 16, I spent my birthday at a high-end steakhouse, laughing politely at some pharmaceutical exec's long-winded stories about golf. I told myself it was just dinner, that I could mentally check out and pretend I was somewhere else. But Mom had trained us too well. We knew just how to tilt our heads when listening, how to gently touch an arm when someone made a joke. The first few dinners didn't seem too dangerous. The men were old enough to be our fathers, but most of them just rambled about their careers or complained about their exes. They'd slip Mom anywhere from $100 to $300 on the way out. "For the girls' college funds," they'd say with a smirk. Lily had a harder time with it than I did. She started getting real stomach aches before every dinner, violent ones that made her vomit. Mom's solution? Hand her a bottle of Pepto-Bismol and tell her to stop being dramatic. Everything shifted the day Mom lost her job at the insurance firm. I heard her crying in her room, rifling through overdue bills. The next morning, she introduced new rules over breakfast. "You need to be more affectionate now. A kiss on the cheek, maybe sit a little closer. These men are paying good money for your time." I watched Lily's face drain of color. "Mom, that's disgusting. These guys are like 50. "These men are keeping a roof over your head," Mom snapped. "Would you rather live on the street? Is that what you want?" After that, the dinners got worse. The men got touchier hands sliding onto our knees under the table, fingers brushing through our hair. Mom would sit across the restaurant, watching and texting us reminders to smile more. The payments rose, $500, $800. One man gave her $1,000 because I let him hold my hand through the entire meal. I started going through her phone when she showered. The texts made me sick. Men asking for the younger one or saying things like, "She looks even younger in person. Perfect." Mom would haggle like we were items at a pawn shop. The final straw came when she measured Lily for a new dress, a tight red one she ordered online. "Mr. Donovan specifically requested something form-fitting," she told her. "He's offering 3 months' rent for one special evening." That night, Lily swallowed a bottle of Mom's prescription meds. I found her collapsed on the bathroom floor and called 911. At the hospital, Mom coached us on what to say. "She's stressed about school. Took too many by accident. You know how teenagers are." I held Lily's hand and parroted Mom's lies to the doctor. But inside, something broke. When we got home, I started recording everything, her coaching sessions, the phone calls, the cash handoffs in parking lots. Mom had chosen Mr. Donovan, her former boss, the one who fired her, for Lily's special night. Whoa. She agreed to let him take Lily to a hotel downtown for $5,000. Just the two of them. All night. I hid in the trunk of her car while she drove Lily to the hotel. I watched her hand off an envelope of money and a key to Donovan. My hands were shaking when I called 911 from the hotel bathroom. I told them everything, how my mom was selling my little sister to a grown man in room 423. But when the police arrived, Donovan opened the door, calm and composed in a pressed suit. He said it was all a misunderstanding. Mom showed up crying, claiming we were troubled girls who made things up for attention. She even managed to shed a few tears. The same fake tears she'd taught us to use if dinner conversation got awkward. The officers left with nothing more than a warning about a family misunderstanding. Mom drove us home in silence. That night I woke up to a quiet house. Too quiet. Mom and Lily were gone. All I found was a note. "Taking your sister to stay with friends who can help with her mental health. Don't try to find us." But I knew better. Those weren't friends. They were the names and numbers in her leather journal, the men who paid top dollar for the younger one. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message made my blood run cold. "Your mother says you're ready for overnight appointments now." I stared at it, my hands trembling. The phone slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the hardwood. My heart thundered as I scrambled to grab it, checking the number again. Unknown, just like the others in Mom's journal. I yanked on yesterday's jeans and a hoodie, barely managing to shove my feet into sneakers. The silence in the house was suffocating. Lily's bedroom door was open, her bed unmade. Mom must have woken her in the middle of the night. Her stuffed elephant, Mr. Peanuts, was on the floor, forgotten. I dialed Lily's number, straight to voicemail, then Mom's. Same result. Both phones were off or already destroyed. I tore into Mom's closet, tossing clothes aside until I found the shoebox. The leather journal was still there. My hands shook as I flipped through it. Names, numbers, payment details, notes, prefers brunettes, likes them shy, willing to pay extra for overnight. The last entry hit me like a punch to the stomach. Lily, Mr. Donovan, $5,000 deposit, $5,000 on delivery, Chicago address, Chicago. 3 hours away. I snapped photos of every page with my phone, then rifled through Mom's dresser drawers. In the bottom one, wrapped in an old sweater, I found a manila envelope. Inside were printed emails between Mom and several men negotiating, arranging, requesting. One thread with Donovan stretched back months, discussions about Lily specifically, price haggling, preferences, promises. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Your mother tells me you're very mature for your age. I'd like to meet you tonight. I'll make it worth your while. I felt nauseated, but I forced my hands to stay steady as I typed back, how much? 3 dots appeared. Then, 2,000 for dinner and whatever happens after. I swallowed my revulsion and replied, I need to know you're serious. Send proof of funds first. While waiting, I grabbed Mom's laptop from her desk. Her password was Lily's birthday. She never bothered to be clever. I opened her email and found dozens of conversations with men from the journal. Some included photos of me and Lily, marketing us like merchandise. One thread with someone named Richard stood out. He'd wired Mom $10,000 last month for exclusive access to Lily. The emails turned graphic quickly. Richard mentioned a safe house in Chicago private, secure, for business. My phone buzzed again, a screenshot of a bank account with over $50,000. Now about tonight. I pretended to play along, negotiating time and location while panic brewed inside me. If I could meet him in person, maybe I could get a location. Or delay long enough to figure out where Mom had taken Lily. We agreed to meet at an upscale steakhouse downtown at 8 p.m. He'd recognize me from the photos Mom had shared. I had 6 hours. First I called Dad. 4 rings, then voicemail. I left a frantic message, spilling everything, begging for help. But deep down, I remembered why he'd left. He found out what Mom was starting to do and tried to stop it, tried to get custody, but she'd convinced the judge he was unstable. Next, I drove to the police station. Officer Martinez, the same one from the hotel incident, was at the front desk. His expression changed the second he saw me. I placed the leather journal on the counter, along with the emails I'd printed. He skimmed a few pages before pushing everything back across the desk. These could be fake, he said flatly. Your mother already told us you have a history of making things up for attention. Please just look at the evidence. My sister is in danger. Your sister is with your mother, her legal guardian. Officer Martinez replied flatly. Unless you can prove immediate harm, this is a family matter. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos, journal entries, emails, all of it. He barely glanced at them. Could be photoshopped, he shrugged. Look, kid, false accusations are serious. Your mom could press charges for harassment. I left the station feeling hollow. Mom had gotten there first. She'd spun her version, cast me as the unstable teenager making wild claims for attention. Classic Mom, always 3 steps ahead. Back in my car, I called the Department of Children and Family Services. After being transferred 4 times, I finally reached a caseworker named Janet. I spoke fast, trying to cram every detail in before she could hang up. She listened patiently, then sighed. Without clear evidence of abuse or a child in immediate danger, we can't interfere with custody. But she tried to kill herself, I said. She swallowed a bottle of pills. Our records show it was ruled an accidental overdose, Janet replied. Your mother is seeking mental health support for her, which reflects appropriate care. Another dead end. I couldn't stop thinking about that red dress. Why had Mom measured Lily for that exact one right after Mr. Donovan requested it? Everything was calculated. How she marketed us. How she groomed us to behave just right. I drove home and tore through Lily's room again, hoping for anything. Inside her pillowcase, I found her diary pages of it, going back months. She'd documented everything, the dinners, the looks, Mom's coaching sessions. The final entry made my throat close up. Mom measured me for that disgusting dress today. I can't do this anymore. I'd rather be dead than let Mr. Donovan touch me. Maybe if I'm gone, she'll stop making my sister do this. Tears filled my eyes. Lily hadn't just been trying to survive, she'd been trying to protect me. I searched Mom's room again, slower this time. Behind the bathroom mirror, I found a small key flat, metallic, with the bank's name etched in the top. First National, Downtown Branch. My phone read 4:00 p.m. I had 4 hours until my meeting with Donovan. At the bank, I tried to access the deposit box. No luck. Only my mom was authorized. The teller wouldn't even confirm the box existed. Desperate, I drove to Aunt Carol's house. She lived in a pristine suburb, the kind with matching mailboxes and trimmed hedges. She answered in yoga pants, surprised to see me. "Have you heard from Mom?" I asked. Her face tightened. "We don't speak anymore," she said. "Not since I found out about her business. I threatened to call CPS. She said she'd spread rumors I was sleeping with my trainer, had fake photos and everything. I'm in the middle of a custody case. I couldn't take the risk." Even family wouldn't help. Mom had dirt on everyone. "She took Lily to Chicago," I said. "Sold her to some guy named Donovan for 10 grand. Carol went pale. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." "Just watch this," I said, handing her a USB stick with every shred of evidence I'd gathered. "If anything happens to me, give it to the FBI, not the local police." Her hands shook as she took it. "I will, I promise." Back in the car, I had 2 hours left. I stopped at an electronics store and bought a pocket-sized voice recorder. Then I went home and changed into one of the dresses Mom had picked out for our dinners. Black, elegant, something that made me look older. I recorded a video on my phone explaining everything, uploaded it to the cloud, and scheduled it to post publicly in 12 hours, unless I canceled it. Insurance. At 7:45 p.m., I parked outside the steakhouse. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. The man had texted a description: gray hair, blue suit, red tie, corner booth. I walked in, heart thudding, scanned the room. There he was, exactly as described. Probably around 60, wedding ring glinting under the warm lighting. He smiled when he saw me, a smile that made my skin crawl. I walked over and slid into the booth across from him. My thumb pressed the voice recorder hidden in my pocket. "You must be—" "Let's skip the pleasantries," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You know why I'm here." He chuckled, a low, knowing laugh, the kind that made me want to scream. "Right to business. I like that," he said smoothly. "Your mother raised you well." "Speaking of my mother," I said, "I haven't been able to reach her. She took my sister somewhere." He tilted his head slightly. "Ah, yes. She mentioned she was traveling. A business opportunity," she said, "with Mr. Donovan." His expression flickered. "Don't pretend," I said, leaning in and forcing a smile the way Mom taught me. "You all know each other. You share recommendations." He studied me. "Perhaps, but that's not why we're here tonight." "It is, actually." I pulled out my phone. "I've got a problem. Mom took Lily to Chicago, and I need to find them. Help me out with an address, and I'll make sure tonight is very memorable for you." His eyes narrowed. "Your mother warned me you might be difficult. She called this afternoon, said you'd stolen some of her things and might try to stir up trouble, asked me to keep you busy until she finishes her business." My stomach dropped. Of course, Mom had planned for this too. "How long?" I asked quietly. "Oh, through the weekend at least. She said you needed to learn your place in the family business." I stood to leave, but he grabbed my wrist. His grip was stronger than I expected. "Leaving so soon? Your mother already accepted my payment. Would be a shame to disappoint her." I yanked my arm free and bolted. He shouted something behind me, but I didn't look back. In the parking lot, I fumbled with my keys, dropping them twice before managing to unlock the car. My hands were shaking as I pulled away. My phone rang. "Mom." I answered, putting her on speaker. "Really, sweetie? Running away from Mr. Davidson? That was very rude." "Where's Lily?" "She's safe," Mom said lightly, "which is more than I can say for you if you keep this up. Bring her back, please." "Oh, honey," she said, almost pitying. "Lily's found her calling. Mr. Donovan is very pleased with his investment. They're getting along wonderfully. You're sick. I'm practical. Do you have any idea how much debt your father left us in? How close we were to sleeping in the car? I did what I had to do. By selling your daughters?" By using our assets wisely, she snapped. You could have had a comfortable life if you just played along. Now, well, Mr. Davidson is very upset. He might want a refund, and I'll need to offer him something else. Maybe that video you made at the hotel? My blood froze. What video? Oh, please, you think I didn't have cameras in the car? I have a lovely clip of you calling 911, trying to ruin everything. I'm sure the police would be very interested to see how you've been stalking and harassing respected businessmen. She hung up. I pulled over, shaking all over. She had been recording me. She'd twisted my attempt to save Lily into evidence against me. My phone buzzed, a video file. I opened it. There I was, in the hotel bathroom, calling 911. The angle made it look like I was alone, unstable, maybe even lying. Another message. Come home, sweetie. We'll discuss your future in the family business. Or I send this to the police and tell them you've been making threats against Mr. Davidson. I sat in my car on the shoulder of the highway, tears streaking down my cheeks. She had blocked every exit, isolated me, made me look like the villain. But I wasn't giving up. Lily was out there, trapped, and I was her only chance. I wiped my face and started the engine. Not going home? Never again. I had one last shot. One person Mom might not have factored in. Dad. He'd left, yes, but he tried to get custody once. Maybe he'd fight again if he knew the truth, knew what was really happening. I drove through the night, heading toward his apartment 2 states away, praying he hadn't moved. The recorder in my pocket held everything Davidson had said. The USB drive in Carol's hands held the rest. And somewhere in Chicago, my baby sister was depending on me. I had to try, even if it made me a runaway, even if Mom made me out to be a delusional, dangerous daughter. Lily needed me, and I wouldn't stop until I got to her. The highway stretched ahead, endless, my headlights the only light for miles. Every mile took me farther from Mom's reach, but also farther from Lily. My phone vibrated non-stop on the passenger seat. Mom. Unknown numbers, more threats. I ignored them all. Around 2 a.m., my body gave out. I pulled into a rest stop, the exhaustion finally catching up. I locked the doors and tried to sleep, but every passing truck made me flinch. Mom had connections. Any of those vehicles could be carrying one of her clients, sent to find me. My phone battery was dying, so I shut it off to conserve power and drifted into a restless sleep as dawn began to creep across the windshield. My neck ached from sleeping upright. My mouth tasted like fear and exhaustion. As soon as the sky lightened, I started driving again. I only stopped for gas and bathroom breaks. At a truck stop, I used cash to buy a cheap prepaid phone, something untraceable. I memorized Dad's number from my dying phone, then tossed the old one into a dumpster. His apartment complex looked just like it had 3 years ago, the only time Mom had let me visit. Faded brick buildings circled a cracked parking lot. His truck was in its usual spot, rustier now, but still stamped with the Johnson's Plumbing logo. I climbed the stairs to apartment 2B and knocked. No answer. I knocked again, louder, then pounded. Footsteps finally approached. The door opened, revealing Dad thinner, wearier, dressed in a stained undershirt. His eyes widened, then narrowed. Without waiting, I showed him everything. The photos of the journal, the emails, the audio recordings. His face paled more with each one. When I finished, he collapsed onto the worn-out couch and buried his head in his hands. He told me how Mom ruined his chances during the custody case, how she'd planted pills in his truck and called in an anonymous tip. The charges were dropped, but not before the judge labeled him an unstable addict trying to take his kids. I begged him to help me find Lily. He started calling old contacts people who might have intel on Chicago safe houses. Most numbers were disconnected. The ones that picked up claimed they didn't know anything. Hours passed. Dad ordered a pizza, but I couldn't eat. My new phone stayed quiet. Mom couldn't reach me, but that also meant I had no idea if Lily was still okay. Eventually, Dad suggested we drive to Chicago, try the addresses from Mom's emails. It was something. A start. We packed up and hit the road just as the sun began to set. The drive took 4 hours. Dad filled the silence with apologies for leaving, for not protecting us, for not being strong enough to fight her lies. I stared out the window. Endless farmland blurred into dull suburbs, then the hard edge of the city. The first address led us to an abandoned warehouse. The second, a real massage parlor. The owner looked genuinely baffled when we asked about Lily. The third address gave me pause. A plain 2-story house with blackout curtains. No signs. No movement. Dad parked across the street. We watched. An hour passed. Nothing. Then Mom's sedan pulled into the driveway. My pulse pounded as she stepped out, but she was alone. No Lily. Mom walked to the front door and knocked in a deliberate rhythm. Someone opened it and let her inside. I reached for the handle, ready to bolt. Dad grabbed my arm. "Wait, we need a plan." "But she always plans ahead," I whispered. "We're always behind." Still, I nodded. We waited. Another hour. Mom came back out, envelope in hand. Cash, I assumed. She got into her car and drove off without noticing us. I memorized every license plate that came and went. Dad suggested we follow her. I had another idea. That knock 3 quick, 2 slow, 1 quick. It's a code. Maybe I can bluff my way inside. Pretend she sent me. Dad wouldn't hear of me going alone. We whispered back and forth until settling on a plan. He'd wait in the truck with the engine running. If I wasn't out in 10 minutes, he'd call the police. My legs trembled as I crossed the street. I knocked 3 quick, 2 slow, 1 quick. The door opened. A middle-aged woman stared at me with cold, suspicious eyes. "I'm here to check on the merchandise," I said, keeping my voice steady. "My mom sent me." She studied me for a long moment, then stepped aside. The smell inside was suffocating, cigarettes and something sterile, chemical. She led me upstairs. My heart nearly stopped. Lily's voice, faint but unmistakable, from behind one of the doors. The woman unlocked it and gestured for me to go in. Lily lay on a bare mattress, wearing that tight red dress Mom had bought. Her eyes were glazed, unfocused, drugged. I rushed to her side, checking her for injuries. Physically, she seemed okay, but she was barely conscious. The woman stood in the doorway, watching us like a hawk. I forced myself to stay calm, pretending to inspect Lily like she was a product instead of my baby sister. Inside, I was shaking with rage. They had drugged her. I told the woman Lily didn't look ready for tonight's client. She shrugged and said the substances would wear off in a few hours. Mr. Donovan specifically requested she be alert for their date. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and said I'd take Lily to freshen up, make her more presentable. The woman hesitated. I acted irritated, dropped Mom's name multiple times, and complained about their negligence in letting the merchandise get disheveled. Eventually, she gave in, but insisted on coming with us. I half-carried Lily down the stairs, her feet dragging with every step. The woman followed close behind. At the door, I pretended to remember something I'd left in the car. She rolled her eyes and opened the door. Dad's truck was across the street, engine idling in the dark. I shifted Lily's weight and shoved the woman hard. She stumbled back into the house and I ran, dragging Lily and screaming for Dad. He threw the truck into gear, tires screeching as he pulled up beside us. The woman reappeared in the doorway, shouting something I couldn't hear. I hauled Lily into the truck bed and jumped in after her. Dad floored it. The woman's voice faded as we rounded the corner. I held Lily close as she mumbled incoherently. Dad drove fast but carefully, taking random turns in case we were followed. 20 minutes later, we pulled into a hospital parking lot. I carried Lily inside, yelling for help. Nurses rushed to meet us with a gurney. I told them she'd been drugged, maybe assaulted. They whisked her away. A police officer showed up to take my statement. This time, I had evidence. The house's address, the woman who let me in, Lily's condition. The officer listened, taking down every detail. Hours passed in the waiting room. Dad paced. I sat frozen, playing everything over in my mind. Had I made it in time? What if she'd been hurt in ways I couldn't see? Finally, a doctor came out. Lily was stable. They'd found sedatives in her system, but no signs of physical assault. More tests were underway, and she'd be kept for observation. Relief washed over me so hard I nearly collapsed. The officer returned, this time with a detective. They'd sent units to the house, but it was empty, cleaned out, not a trace left. Of course it was. Mom always had backup plans. The detective questioned me for over an hour. I gave him everything: photos, recordings, names, dates. He actually seemed to care, unlike Officer Martinez. Dad backed me up, explaining Mom's manipulation, her history of deceit. The detective promised a full investigation, but in the meantime, Lily couldn't go back home. She couldn't stay with Dad either. He had no legal custody. A social worker showed up to discuss placement. The likely option? Foster care. I begged them to reconsider. Lily needed family, not strangers. The social worker was kind, but firm. Without Mom's parental rights being terminated, they had no other legal route. That morning, Lily still hadn't woken up. I dozed in a stiff chair, jerking awake every time someone walked past. Dad brought bad coffee and a donut from the cafeteria. I could barely touch either. My prepaid phone buzzed. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered. But I did. Mom's voice came through the line, calm and cold. "I know where you are." She knew we had Lily. She said her lawyers were filing kidnapping charges against me and Dad. I told her the police were involved now, that an investigation was underway. She laughed. "Sweetheart, you think anyone's going to believe a runaway teen and a deadbeat ex over a concerned mother? Especially with that hotel video? The one where you staged a false emergency?" My stomach dropped. "Return Lily," she said, her voice steel, "or face the consequences." She hung up. I looked at Dad. His eyes mirrored my own dread. Mom wouldn't stop. She'd burn the whole world down to protect her operation. The detective returned. More bad news. The house was rented under a fake identity. No usable evidence left behind. No witnesses. No footage. Just our word. I showed him the recordings, the journal images. He nodded they helped. But it wasn't enough. Mom could say they were doctored. We needed Lily's voice, her account. That afternoon she stirred, groggy, disoriented. Then her eyes found mine. She cried the moment she realized I was there, and she clung to my hand like she'd never let go. I promised her she was safe now, that Mom couldn't hurt her anymore. The detective interviewed Lily gently. She confirmed everything, the dinners, the men, the pressure from Mom. She described the house, the cold-eyed woman who kept her locked away, the drugs they'd given her. But the substances had blurred her memory. She couldn't recall exact dates or names, apart from Mr. Donovan. The detective said her statement still helped, but I could see the hesitation behind his words. That evening, Mom showed up at the hospital flanked by 2 lawyers. She delivered a performance worthy of an award, the distraught mother, claiming her mentally unstable daughters had run away. She presented documentation to support her version, Lily's so-called psychiatric history, my supposed pattern of delusions and false accusations. The lawyers threatened legal action against the hospital for detaining Lily without parental consent. They waved around forged documents, no doubt, but official-looking ones showing Mom had been seeking treatment for both of us. Security barred her from entering Lily's room, but her shadow loomed large. She stood outside the glass doors, watching, always watching. The social worker moved quickly. Lily's placement was expedited. A foster family was found, the Johnsons veterans in handling trauma cases. They lived an hour away, distant enough to slow Mom's access. Lily clung to me, begging not to be separated. I promised I'd visit, that I'd keep fighting, but we both knew Mom wouldn't give up. She'd twist the system, manipulate every social worker, pull every string. Eventually, she'd try to get Lily back. That night, I made a choice. Mom had taught me how to survive, how to charm, how to manipulate. Time to use those tools against her. I called one of the men from the journal Robert, someone who'd always been soft-spoken at dinners, even kind. He answered on the 3rd ring. I told him everything, begged for his help. Long silence. Then he admitted he'd known something felt off, but convinced himself it was innocent. Just scholarship dinners, maybe? His guilt was palpable. He agreed to speak to the police. Gave me the names of other men who'd expressed quiet doubts about Mom's operation. Not all of them were predators. Some had genuinely believed they were helping struggling girls. Over the next 2 days, I contacted 12 men from the journal. 7 hung up immediately. 3 threatened me. But 2 agreed to talk, ashamed, remorseful. The detective began building a real case. Every statement helped. The men's testimony corroborated the payments. Their descriptions matched ours. The arrangement was clear. Mom had been careful, but not careful enough. Lily was placed with the Johnsons. I visited the day before, spent hours just sitting with her, holding her. She looked so small, so fragile. The foster parents were kind, promising to keep her safe. Meanwhile, Mom's lawyers flooded the court with motions. She played the martyr victimized by her unhinged daughter. But Robert's statement, along with others, began chipping away at her facade. Bank records told the rest of the story. Large cash deposits matching dates in her journal. The timeline fit too well. And then other girls started coming forward. Daughters of Mom's friends. Girls she'd recruited for dinner dates. The pattern was unmistakable. Mom's empire began to crack. I stayed with Dad, helping where I could. He worked during the day while I organized documents, coordinated calls, followed up on leads. Our evenings were quiet, heavy with unspoken emotion. Then one night, Mom showed up at his door. She looked thinner, less polished. Desperation clung to her like sweat. She begged me to recant, said I'd misunderstood, that I was overreacting. When charm didn't work, she turned cold, started listing all her sacrifices, every bill she paid, every meal we ever ate. Her voice cracked with anger. Dad stepped in, told her to leave. She laughed bitterly, reminding him how easily she'd destroyed his credibility last time. But he didn't flinch. He stood firm, protective in a way I hadn't seen in years. After she left, we changed the locks, installed a security camera. Mom was unraveling, and desperate people are dangerous. The detective warned us, cornered predators lash out. The next morning, our tires were slashed. The night after that, someone hurled a brick through our window. Each incident was logged. Each one made the case against her stronger. I visited Lily at the Johnsons' home. She was starting therapy, slowly beginning to process the trauma. Seeing her in a normal bedroom, with stuffed animals and posters on the wall, made me cry. This was the kind of childhood Mom had stolen from us. Then the detective called. They'd arrested Mom. Multiple charges: child endangerment, trafficking, exploitation. Her bail was set high enough to keep her in custody, for now. But I knew Mom. She had money stashed away, connections waiting to be used. This wasn't over. And I was right. Within a week, she posted bail courtesy of one of her wealthy clients. She launched a full-blown campaign almost immediately. Interviews with sympathetic bloggers, tearful pleas about being a misunderstood single mother, claims that Dad and I had manipulated the system to destroy her, that we were the dangerous ones. The trial was scheduled 6 months out, 6 months for Mom to scheme, to rewrite the narrative, to intimidate witnesses. I watched her reinvent herself, polished and pitiable, gathering sympathy from people who didn't know the truth. Or didn't care. One by one, some of the men who had agreed to testify backed out, suddenly unreachable, suddenly unwilling to be linked to any of it. Mom had gotten to them. Through threats, money, or leverage, I wasn't sure, but our case grew weaker by the day. Lily struggled in foster care. The Johnsons were kind, but she missed me terribly. Phone calls ended in tears on both ends. Then Mom petitioned for visitation rights, accusing us of parental alienation. I threw myself into the case. Every spare minute went into organizing evidence, contacting new witnesses, compiling proof of Mom's continued harassment. Dad helped when he could, but work kept him stretched thin. Then, finally, a break. Catherine, one of Mom's former friends, reached out to me. She'd recently discovered Mom had tried to recruit her teenage daughter into the dinner business. Catherine hadn't stayed quiet. She had proof: texts, emails, even a voice recording of Mom describing the arrangement. Catherine also connected me to other mothers Mom had approached with the same proposal. A network began to take shape: women who had said no, women who had seen through the manipulation and were horrified by it. Their testimonies showed a disturbing pattern. This wasn't desperation. It was design, a methodical operation. The detective was thrilled. This new evidence proved planning, intent, recruitment. Mom couldn't claim misunderstanding anymore. She must have sensed the walls closing in, because the harassment escalated. Dead animals showed up on Dad's porch. My prepaid phone buzzed constantly with anonymous threats. Someone keyed LIAR into the side of Dad's truck. But each incident added fuel to our case. The detective assigned a patrol officer to do regular drive-bys. The prosecutor told us that Mom's behavior was self-destructive, that she was digging her own legal grave. I kept focusing on Lily, visiting her whenever I could. Slowly, she began to heal. Her therapist said she was making progress. Fewer nightmares. She was starting to connect with the Johnsons. She'd even made a friend at her new school. The trial loomed like a storm cloud. Mom's lawyers filed motion after motion trying to suppress evidence, get charges dismissed, move the trial to a different county. Most were denied, but each one drained our energy. I worked with the prosecutor to prepare my testimony. She warned me what to expect. Mom's legal team would try to tear me down, paint me as unbalanced, vengeful, a liar. I had to stay calm, focused, factual. Lily would testify via closed-circuit video, so she wouldn't have to face Mom in court. It was standard procedure for vulnerable witnesses, the prosecutor assured us. I worried about the impact on her, but we both knew her voice was essential. Then disaster struck. Robert, the witness who had first agreed to help, recanted, claimed I coerced him, claimed he'd never attended dinners with Lily or me, never met us at all. Mom had gotten to him too. The prosecutor tried to stay optimistic. We still had the new witnesses, the documents, Lily's testimony, but Robert had been a cornerstone. His withdrawal damaged our credibility. Mom's team would use it to undermine the rest. I couldn't sleep. I could barely eat. The pressure of protecting Lily was crushing. What if we lost? What if the jury believed Mom? What if Lily was sent back? Dad tried to reassure me, but I saw the worry in his eyes. We'd both underestimated her before. Her ability to twist any situation to her advantage. This trial felt like our last chance. And then, from nowhere, a new voice came forward. Her name was Sarah. She contacted the prosecutor directly. She said she'd once been one of Mom's girls years ago, before Lily or I were even born. She had stayed silent all this time, too ashamed, too scared. But after seeing the news coverage, she found her courage. Sarah's testimony was devastating. She described Mom's grooming methods in chilling detail, the slow escalation, the psychological manipulation, the rehearsed charm. Her experience mirrored ours almost perfectly, establishing a pattern that stretched back decades, and she wasn't alone. More women came forward, their stories following the same script. Mom had been running versions of this scheme for years, each variation carefully tailored to avoid detection. But the trial's publicity cracked the silence wide open. The prosecutor requested a delay just to process the surge of new witnesses. Mom's carefully curated image collapsed under the weight of it all. The sympathetic bloggers vanished. Her wealthy supporters distanced themselves. She was no longer the misunderstood single mother. She was a predator. Calculating. Cruel. Her lawyers scrambled for damage control, claiming the new witnesses were liars chasing money or attention. But there were too many. Their testimonies too aligned, too specific. The house of cards crumbled. The night before I was set to testify, I visited Lily. We sat in her room at the Johnsons' home, holding hands in silence. The stuffed animals around her, the fairy lights on the walls, they were reminders of the childhood Mom had never allowed. Lily told me she was proud of me for fighting, for not giving up. Her quiet strength broke me. The morning of trial arrived gray and drizzling. Dad drove me to the courthouse. We barely spoke. Inside, the building buzzed with voices, journalists, advocates, strangers craning to catch a glimpse. At the defense table, Mom sat rigid in a conservative suit, her hair pulled tight, face sharper than I remembered. She'd lost weight. Her eyes darted briefly toward me. For the first time, I saw fear. The prosecutor opened with clarity and force, laying out the timeline. I watched Mom's fingers tap restlessly on the table, the only crack in her polished mask. I was called on day 3. Walking to the witness stand felt like wading through molasses, but the prosecutor walked me through it step by step. The dinners, the pressure after Mom lost her job, the night I found Lily on the bathroom floor. I kept my voice steady, even as Mom's lawyer objected again and again. Then came the cross-examination. It was brutal. Mom's attorney attacked every detail, calling the dinners innocent networking events, suggesting I had misunderstood adult conversation. He implied I was jealous of the attention Lily received, that I had exaggerated for revenge. When he brought up the hotel video, I explained calmly how Mom had doctored it to strip away the context. The jury listened closely. Some scribbled notes. Lily testified the following week via closed-circuit video. Her voice shook as she recounted the way the men touched her hair, how Mom coached her on what to say and do, how terrified she was the night she overdosed. When they asked about the Chicago house, she broke down in tears. The judge called a recess. Then came Sarah's turn again. She brought her old diaries written 20 years ago, filled with pages describing grooming tactics identical to those Mom used on us. More women followed, one after another, layering their stories into a chorus of trauma. Mom's lawyer tried to discredit them all, said they were attention seekers, liars, fantasists, but the consistency of their accounts was undeniable. Then came the hard evidence, bank statements, each deposit aligning with journal entries, text messages pulled from Mom's phone, openly negotiating rates for time with underage girls. One particularly sickening exchange itemized Lily's virginity like something off a menu. Mom took the stand on day 12. She painted herself as desperate, said she'd made poor choices, claimed the dinners were legitimate mentorship. connections, support. But the cross-examination shredded her. She couldn't explain the stacks of cash, couldn't explain the messages, couldn't explain the trail of girls, all telling the same story. During a break, I found Dad crying in the hallway. He blamed himself for not fighting harder in the custody battle. I hugged him, too tired to say anything else. We were both worn down, cracked open from reliving our family's unraveling in public. The prosecutor's closing argument was surgical. She walked the jury through the years of abuse, step by step. From casual dinners to orchestrated exploitation, she showed how this wasn't a desperate mother. It was a practiced system, honed over time. She didn't ask for outrage. She asked for justice. Mom's lawyer gave one last desperate plea, suggesting we had conspired against her, that the other women were opportunists, that everything had been twisted out of context. But it fell flat. The jury deliberated for 2 days. I stayed at Dad's apartment. Neither of us could sleep. Lily called constantly from the Johnsons, terrified of what might happen. We tried to reassure her, but we were drowning in uncertainty ourselves. Then the call came. We rushed to the courthouse. Mom stood as the jury filed in, her hands clenched, mask finally cracking. The foreman read the verdicts, guilty on all counts: child endangerment, trafficking, exploitation of minors. Mom's legs buckled as the verdict was read. Her attorney kept a careful eye on her, but said nothing. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following month and revoked her bail on the spot. As the officers led her away, she looked back at me. She didn't say a word, but her eyes spoke volumes. Disbelief, betrayal, as if she still couldn't comprehend that I'd actually beaten her. Outside the courthouse, reporters surged forward. The prosecutor stepped in, shielding me, and gave a brief statement about justice being served for the victims. I didn't speak. I was too drained, too numb to form coherent thoughts. That night I called Lily with the news. She cried, tears of relief. Then came the question I had been dreading. What happens now? The Johnsons were amazing, she said, but she wanted to come home, except we didn't really have a home anymore. The next morning, Dad and I sat over coffee, trying to piece things together. His apartment was too cramped for 3 people. He had been saving up to move into a larger place, but the trial had wiped those savings: clean gas, missed shifts, takeout dinners between hearings. The immediate danger was gone, but everything ahead was uncertain. I existed in a strange limbo. I helped the prosecutor prepare for sentencing by writing a victim impact statement. Putting it all down, what Mom had done to us, forced me to confront just how deep the wounds went. Lily's therapy intensified. Her therapist recommended staying with the Johnsons through the school year for consistency and emotional stability. Agreeing broke my heart, but she needed structure more than she needed me under the same roof, for now. I enrolled in online classes to finish high school. Dad's apartment became my classroom, my refuge. He picked up extra hours, doing what he could to save again, this time with Lily's return in mind. I took a part-time job at a grocery store. Every paycheck went toward groceries, bills, or Lily's future. It wasn't much, but it was something. Sentencing day arrived sooner than I expected. The courtroom was packed. Survivors, reporters, strangers who had followed the case. Mom looked like a ghost in her orange jumpsuit, drawn, pale, hollowed out. Her pristine image was gone. The judge allowed victim impact statements. I read mine with trembling hands, describing everything: the loss of our childhood, the fracture of our family, the enduring pain Lily carried. Other women stood and shared their stories. Mom stared at the defense table, not reacting. When the judge offered her the chance to speak, she launched into a rambling statement, part apology, part deflection. She blamed Dad, poverty, the pressure of being a single mother, society. Not once did she acknowledge the actual harm she caused. The judge was unmoved. He sentenced her to 25 years, with the possibility of parole in 15. She'd be in her 60s before she saw freedom again. As the gavel fell, I felt empty. Justice had been served, but it didn't undo the damage. After court, several of Mom's victims approached me. They thanked me for speaking out, for pushing forward when no one else could. Sarah hugged me and whispered, "You did what I couldn't 20 years ago." The prosecutor connected me with victim services, counseling, support groups, rebuilding resources. I said yes to everything. I needed to start over. Lily and I fell into a new rhythm. We FaceTimed every night. I visited on weekends. The Johnsons embraced me as extended family. Lily began healing. She smiled more, slept better, even joined the drama club at school. Dad and I grew closer, bonded through the mess we'd survived. We cooked together, watched old movies, talked about everything except Mom. He started therapy too, working through his guilt for leaving us behind. 3 months after sentencing, he found a rental, a modest 3-bedroom, but with enough space for Lily when she was ready. On weekends, we painted rooms, furnished it with thrift store finds, slowly turning it into a home. I earned my GED and started at community college. The grocery store promoted me to shift supervisor. Life took on a shape. Work, school, visiting Lily, helping Dad around the house. Normal felt unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. Lily's therapist recommended a gradual transition, first weekends, then holiday breaks. By summer, she was ready to come home for good. The Johnsons hosted a small going-away party, promising to stay in touch. We were all crying by the end. That first night back as a family without Mom was quietly emotional. We ordered pizza, watched Lily's favorite animated movie, pretended everything was normal, but when she hugged us goodnight, the tears came. Good tears. Healing ones. Dad picked up more plumbing jobs to cover Lily's therapy. I kept balancing work and school, making sure Lily stayed caught up with her assignments. We weren't perfect, but we were trying. Some days were harder than others. That fall, Lily returned to public school. We chose a different district, one where no one knew our story. She made friends, joined clubs, slowly began reclaiming the teenage years Mom had taken from her. Each morning, I drove her to school. It became our quiet ritual, just the two of us. One evening, while we were sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, Lily looked up and asked, "Do you think Mom ever loved us?" I didn't know how to answer. Maybe she had, in her twisted way. Or maybe we'd only ever been assets to her tools for survival and control. In the end, I told Lily it didn't matter anymore. We had each other now. That's what counted. The grocery store offered me a spot in their full-time management training program. It meant reducing my class load, but the health insurance would cover Lily's therapy. Dad told me he was proud. I just told him I was doing what needed to be done. We built new traditions from the ground up Sunday dinners, where we each cooked a dish, movie nights with far too much popcorn, and board game tournaments that got weirdly competitive. A family stitched together from the ashes of the one we'd lost. Lily started dating a boy from her math class. Dad and I thoroughly interrogated him, probably scared him half to death. Lily just laughed afterward, said it felt good to have an overprotective family. Normal problems felt like a blessing. I kept saving, slowly, planning for a 4-year college someday. My manager wrote glowing recommendation letters about my work ethic and leadership. Professors at the community college gave me advice, direction. People wanted to help once they saw I wasn't giving up. Sometimes I still woke up in the middle of the night, panicked, dreaming Mom had found us. But those episodes became less frequent. Lily had them too. On those nights, we'd sit together in the living room with mugs of hot chocolate, reminding each other, "She's locked away. She can't hurt us anymore." Dad began dating someone, Martha, from the plumbing supply store. He was nervous about telling us, afraid we'd feel betrayed. But Martha was kind, grounded, never overstepped. She didn't try to replace anyone. She brought Dad the steadiness he hadn't had in years. By the 1-year anniversary of Mom's sentencing, life had settled into something like peace. Lily was thriving, excelling in school. I was halfway through my associate's degree. Dad's business was steady. We weren't rich, barely middle class, but we were safe. That night, we didn't talk about Mom. Instead, we pulled out old photo albums from before everything had fallen apart. Family vacations, birthday parties, ordinary moments we'd almost forgotten. Lily pointed to one picture of us at a beach and said, "We look so young, so different." The next morning, I dropped her off at school, went to my classes, worked an evening shift. Just another ordinary day in our rebuilt life. And on the drive home, I realized something. I'd gone hours without thinking about Mom, or the trial, or any of it. Progress, I realized, came in moments like these. That semester, Lily made the honor roll. We celebrated at her favorite restaurant. Her choice, no pressure, just family. She laughed freely, ordered whatever she wanted, and acted like the teenager she deserved to be. Over dessert, Dad and I exchanged a glance, a silent gratitude between us. I decided to major in social work. I wanted to help kids like us. My advisor warned me it might be emotionally challenging given my history, but I'd already lived through worse. Maybe my experience could help someone else find their way through it. Lily announced she was trying out for the school play. We practiced her audition lines for weeks. Dad read the other parts in over-the-top voices that made her laugh until she cried. She got cast as the best friend of the lead. Opening night, we sat front row cheering too loudly, embarrassing her completely. Martha started moving in gradually, first a drawer, then a closet, eventually officially. Lily and I had worried we'd feel pushed aside, but Martha respected boundaries. She became an ally, another adult Lily could trust. Our definition of family expanded. I transferred to a 4-year college as a junior. I commuted to save money. The workload was intense, but Lily helped around the house, picking up chores without being asked. She'd grown so much. No longer the broken girl in the hospital gown. During my senior year, Lily started looking at colleges of her own. She wanted to study psychology, understand what had happened, help others. We toured campuses together, imagined her future. She leaned toward schools close enough to visit, but far enough to find her independence. Graduation day came faster than I expected. Dad, Lily, and Martha sat in the front row as I walked across the stage, the first in our family to earn a degree. Lily hugged me tight afterward. "You're my hero," she whispered. I smiled and told her, "You're mine," because it was her strength, her survival that had given me the reason to fight. And together, we'd made it out. I found work at a local youth services agency. The job was tough, sometimes triggering but deeply meaningful. Every kid I helped felt like a quiet rebellion against Mom's legacy. Lily started volunteering there during her summer breaks. She found her own form of healing by helping others. When she left for college on a hard-earned scholarship, I cried more than I expected. They weren't sad tears, just full ones. She'd survived everything and still chosen hope. Dad and I drove home in quiet companionship. The house felt strange without Lily's energy, but we adjusted. Video calls, care packages, weekend visits, they became our new normal. She flourished, made friends, dated, studied late, dealt with normal college problems. We celebrated every bit of it, grateful for the ordinariness. At work, I moved up, eventually supervising other caseworkers. Dad's plumbing business grew. He hired 3 full-time employees. Martha became the grandmother Lily never had. We built success from survival, one deliberate day at a time. Lily graduated with honors and was accepted straight into grad school. At her celebration dinner, she thanked us for saving her. Dad and I pushed back, told her she'd saved herself, but she insisted we'd shown her what rebuilding looked like after devastation. The years passed in beautifully ordinary ways. Careers advanced, relationships deepened, holidays came and went. We stopped counting time in relation to the trial. Instead, we marked it by small milestones, anniversaries, promotions, Lily's latest accomplishments. Mom faded into the background, a shadow, not a threat. Lily became a therapist specializing in trauma. I ran youth programs for at-risk teens. Dad's company thrived. Martha kept us all balanced. We'd carved lives of meaning out of pain, chosen healing over bitterness, every single day. Sometimes I wondered if Mom ever thought of us in prison, if she regretted what she did, or just regretted getting caught. But it didn't matter. We didn't need answers from her anymore. We were no longer tied to her legacy. The last time I passed Mom's old house, it was being torn down. Neighbors said it had stood empty since the trial. No one wanted it. The wrecking ball swung, and I felt nothing but detached curiosity. That chapter was closed. That life had been replaced by something hard-earned and far more precious. That evening, Lily called to tell me about a new research opportunity. Her voice sparkled with excitement. We talked for an hour about her work, her boyfriend, her holiday plans, just a normal conversation between sisters who had survived the impossible. After the call, I sat in my apartment and took it all in. The peace, the quiet, the normalcy. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Maybe a tough case at work. Dinner with Dad and Martha, a movie night with friends. Nothing flashy, but beautiful in its simplicity. Happiness, I had learned, wasn't loud. It lived in the quiet accumulation of peaceful moments. Sometimes I looked back and marveled at the teenage girl who had once hidden in a car trunk to save her sister. That girl felt like a distant version of me, wild with fear, running on adrenaline. I had become someone steadier, calmer, but the fire in me still existed, ready when needed. Lily and I never discussed writing a book or going public. Our story wasn't for public consumption, it was ours. And we had found our peace in privacy, in healing, in building lives worth living. As I got ready for bed in my modest apartment, I felt the deep satisfaction of a reclaimed life. Not perfect, not without scars, but entirely mine. Tomorrow would bring both joys and challenges, and I would meet them with the quiet strength of a woman who had once fought her way out of darkness and now helped others do the same. The girl who'd hidden in her mother's trunk had become a woman who saved others. The cycle ended with us. In its place, we planted seeds of healing that would bloom for generations. That was the real victory. Not just surviving, but turning survival into purpose. This was what it meant to choose who we wanted to be, instead of letting the past decide for us. Thanks for walking through this story with me. I hope you find your own peace too.